Video opens with a reflective, slightly melancholic shot of you, maybe looking out a window or into the distance. Somber music plays softly. Hook asterisk. Imagine discovering the darkest secret your loved one holds, a secret so twisted and heartbreaking it makes you question everything you thought you knew about them. My girlfriend, Sarah, was pregnant after the unthinkable happened, and she insisted on keeping the baby, but the real reason why would absolutely shatter my world. Music fades slightly, becomes more narrative-focused. Main story, Part 1 asterisk.
Sarah.
My Sarah. She was my everything. But when she told me she'd been violated at a party, and then, in the same breath, announced she was keeping the baby, calling it a blessing in disguise, my world just tilted on its axis. I looked at her, and all I could see was what he had done. How could I embrace that? How could I raise a child that carried the shadow of such a horrific act?
Guilt ate at me.
I loved Sarah, truly, madly, deeply. But the thought of raising that baby, it was a weight I didn't think I could bear. It felt like too much. I was drowning. So I did what anyone does when they're utterly lost. I went to my friends. First, Ryan. My goofy, always joking friend. I poured my heart out, asking him what he would do. He just laughed and said, "If I were Sarah, or if I were you, I don't even know why I came here knowing you'd make a joke out of it." But when he saw the raw pain in my eyes, he got serious. He told me, bluntly, that it was my decision. If it felt like too much, I should leave. He said he wouldn't stay, but that my choice should be about our relationship. I left his house more confused than when I walked in. More questions, no answers. Next up, Jason. An old frat brother from college. I pitched it as a hypothetical, a friend situation, though I'm pretty sure he saw right through me. Jason, ever the pro-life advocate, looked at me with this intense stare and said, "If you truly love Sarah, you have to stay. She's already been through hell.
Don't add to her pain.
And think about the kids without fathers often struggle." Validation. That's all I wanted.
Just someone to tell me what to do.
But even after Jason, I was still pulling into my driveway, realizing this was a decision I had to make alone. That night, I walked into her house, my heart pounding, and found Sarah. "Can we talk?" I asked. Her face was guarded, but she nodded. I told her everything. How sorry I was she was going through this, how torn she must feel. I gently, carefully, brought up the idea of terminating the pregnancy. I knew it would be like pulling teeth. Sarah had grown up in a devout Catholic household, Mass 3 times a week. I knew her beliefs, but I had to ask. The look she gave me, it was pure horror. Like I'd suggested throwing puppies into a bonfire. "You already know the answer to that," she whispered, her voice laced with pain and accusation. I tried again. "Sarah, I don't know if I can raise a child that isn't mine. It could destroy us." That's when the dam broke. She called me selfish. Said if I couldn't handle this, I wasn't the man for her. I pleaded, "I'll help you heal, therapy, everything." But a baby changes everything. She just shook her head. "I'm done with this conversation." And then, she walked away, leaving me sitting there, utterly defeated. I loved her, but I knew, deep down, I couldn't live a life of resentment. Not like this. Quick cut to a slightly different camera angle, more direct eye contact with the viewer. By the way, if you're still with me on this roller coaster of a story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss the next unbelievable tale I've got coming your way. Main story, Part 2 asterisk. Main story, Part 2 asterisk. The weeks that followed were pure emotional whiplash. We'd have these incredible days, like we used to. Dates, laughter, just us. Then, out of nowhere, Sarah would mention the baby, or missing these times once the baby's here, and it would trigger the same old argument. I'd remind her, "We don't have to miss these times. We could not have the baby." And she'd call me selfish again. "Just let me have this one thing," she'd plead. Every time, it ended the same way. Sarah was keeping the baby, and I felt powerless. She'd act like I'd forgotten, like I'd agreed, because I never treated her differently.
But the question just gnawed at me. Why?
Why, as a 19-year-old college student with loans up to her eyeballs, would she insist on keeping a baby? We were barely making ends meet. Babies are expensive. And she'd never even wanted kids before. What had changed? That night, lying in the dark, the question echoed in my mind. What changed? I needed to know. I knew it was wrong, but the next morning, I did the unthinkable. I went through Sarah's phone. I scrolled through texts with her friend Bridget, mostly cat memes and Bridget's dating drama. Nothing about the baby. More texts from Victoria's Secret and Bath and Body Works coupons. My heart sank. Hopeless. Until I stumbled across a group chat. Sarah, her mom, her dad. I opened it and everything froze. It was a text from her mother, sent the night after the incident. A text that seemed to stretch on forever, blaming Sarah for what happened. Blaming her for her belly button piercing, for wearing makeup, for being promiscuous, for attracting men. She even brought up the priest from their old church, the one who had to step down, implying Sarah was the cause. My blood ran cold as I read the words. She told Sarah she deserved what happened. But it got worse. The text concluded with her mother telling her she had to keep the baby if she wanted to make it to heaven. That this child would help her slow down from being a Jezebel. And to top it all off, that everything that happened, Sarah deserved it. Sarah's reply wasn't there. I assumed she called. I checked the call log. Sure enough, 8 minutes after that toxic message, she'd called her mom. Just as I processed this horrifying truth, Sarah walked into the kitchen. My heart leaped into my throat. I swiped out, locked the phone, tossed it onto the table. I had to collect myself fast. I plastered a smile on my face, pulled her into a hug, a kiss. The heartache she must have been enduring, it was unfathomable. How are you doing? I asked, trying to sound as normal, as compassionate as possible. I wanted to scream, to ask about her mom, about the baby, about everything, but I couldn't. Not without her knowing I'd invaded her privacy. She said she was making it, but the dark circles under her eyes screamed a different story. Is there anything I can do? I asked. She just chuckled, a fragile sound, and said, breakfast would solve all the problems in the world right now. I nodded, grabbing ingredients, my mind reeling. For the next couple of weeks, I walked on eggshells, but I also tried my best to care for her. The realization that she didn't want this baby, that her parents were forcing her to keep it, gnawed at me constantly. I hated that she had no one truly in her corner. But I was torn. Speaking up meant an argument, more stress for her, or worse, her discovering I'd gone through her phone and shattering the trust we'd built. I couldn't risk it. Not yet. Main story, Part 3 asterisk. One evening, after running her a bath and cooking her favorite meal, I knew it was time. I had to know the full truth from her. After dinner, she smiled. What did I do to deserve all this? I smiled back, for being the best girlfriend ever. We laughed. Then I cleared my throat. Can we talk? Really talk. I watched her face shift, from content to wary. About what? She asked. I took a deep breath. Everything. I told her I'd gone through her phone. I told her I'd seen her mom's message. I told her I knew, deep down, she didn't actually want the baby, that she was just trying to please them. I told her I knew about the trauma, the blame they heaped on her. And then I asked her to tell me everything. From her perspective. She didn't get mad about the phone. As I finished speaking, she just crumbled. The tears came, a torrent of them. It was like years of pent-up pain, guilt, trauma. The incident, our strained relationship, her parents, the baby, balancing school. It all just hit her at once. She wept into my shoulder. I want to leave the past behind me. This baby, it's a living reminder of that night. I held her tight, reminding her I was there, that we'd get through this. Through her sobs, she nodded. I looked into her eyes. If you truly want to terminate the pregnancy, we will. She nodded again, a slow, decisive movement. The next morning, I woke her with breakfast in bed. Good morning, I said, my heart fluttering.
Good morning, she replied.
As we ate, I wondered if the breakthrough was real, or if fear would creep back in. After breakfast, I had to ask, Sarah, did you mean what you said last night? She hesitated, just for a second. I'm scared, she confessed, of what my parents will do. I took her hand. You're not under their roof anymore. Their opinion doesn't matter. They've been nothing but toxic. Her eyes met mine, and she nodded slowly. Then, she grabbed her laptop. What are you doing? I asked.
Looking up places, she said.
To terminate the pregnancy. We spent the rest of the morning searching. When we found the right clinic, we called and got her an appointment. I asked her, gently, how are you doing with all of this? Have you gotten attached? She looked me dead in the eye.
Can I be honest? She asked.
Absolutely, I said. Every day, she began, I feel like I have a parasite growing inside me. It makes me feel dirty. I know it's not the baby's fault, but I could never love it like a mother should. The relief that washed over her face, just from saying those words aloud, was immense. She tried talking to her mom and was met with criticism. Bridget, who came from the same religious background, had done the same. Days later, the appointment was here. I drove her, waited in the reception. When it was done, she felt lightheaded, a bit of pain. I took her home, tucked her onto the couch, and put on her favorite cooking show. As she rested, her phone buzzed. Mom. The caller ID flashed. We shared a glance. Are you going to answer? I asked. If I don't, she sighed, she'll just call until I do. She picked it up. Her mom's voice was a frantic blur on the other end. How are you? Is the baby okay? Sarah choked up. I'm fine, just lightheaded. I need rest. More frantic words from the phone. Then, I'm coming over. And she hung up. Sarah looked utterly terrified. She didn't have the courage to tell them. Go to the bedroom, I told her. I'll handle them. When her parents burst through the door, demanding Sarah, I stood firm.
She's resting.
Have a seat. They could tell by my tone. They were already furious, demanding to know about the baby. But then Sarah, brave as ever, walked into the living room, and that's when they saw them, the painkillers from the clinic, sitting on the kitchen counter. Rage distorted their faces. I stepped between them and Sarah as they began to spew venom. Disgrace. None of this would have happened if you weren't dressing like a... That was it. I cut them off. Get out. My voice was shaking, but resolute. Leave this house, or I'm calling the police. And if you ever show up here again, I will get a restraining order. The only way you're allowed back in our lives is if you come crawling back, begging for forgiveness. Her father, a man I'd always tried to respect, grabbed his wife's arm. We want nothing to do with sinners like you, he spat, and then they were gone. Music swells slightly, becomes more hopeful/reflective. Ending asterisk. A year later, we were sitting on our apartment balcony, enjoying the morning sun. The doorbell rang. Sarah looked at me, confused. No one was expected. I opened the door. It was them. Her parents. We miss our little girl, they said. We want to make it right. Sarah, with her incredible capacity for forgiveness, decided to try. She knew it would take years to heal the wounds, but she tried. They came over for dinners, we went to theirs. We played board games, caught up. But every single time, without fail, the conversation would turn sour. Her parents would say something, some cutting remark, some blame, and it would trigger Sarah, ending in another explosive argument. We'd leave, defeated once more. Sarah was in therapy, but the decades of emotional abuse, the deep-seated trauma her parents had inflicted, it wasn't going to vanish overnight. After multiple painful, failed attempts at rekindling a genuine relationship, she finally realized it. The damage was done. It was irreparable. The conversations dwindled, becoming few and far between. And eventually, they faded into silence. They lost contact completely. But you know what? Our relationship, Sarah's and mine, it only grew stronger. It became richer, more fulfilling than ever before. Because we learned that sometimes the most profound love means cutting out toxicity, even when it's family. We learned that all we ever truly needed was each other. Music fades out slowly as you hold eye contact. Call to action, CTA. This journey, it changed everything. So I have to ask you, what would you have done in my place? And have you ever had to make such a heartbreaking choice about family? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts.